Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Redneck video. Again, my name is Chris, and if you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. Today we're going to be talking about how things have changed since I started raising quail. I had a viewer, and I don't remember who it was, or I'd give you credit, but they specifically asked me on one of my live broadcasts a week or two ago to do a video on how quail raising has changed since I started raising quail. So to give you a little context, I started probably around 10 years ago, roughly, raising quail. As far as how things have changed, really, I mean, the basics are the basics. They haven't changed at all. The way you care for quail, the way you house them, the way all those things haven't really changed at all. I've made changes to my process, which I'll talk about here in a minute. The only big changes I would say in quail from when I started raising them to now is when I first started raising quail, all I had available to me were standard size brown quail. That was it. That was the only thing you could really get. Jumbos weren't a thing yet. They were just starting to become, just starting to get the genetics, I think, ironed out, so to speak. So they were just beginning to come into the market. They weren't really in the market yet. They were prohibitively expensive, hard to find. And then it wasn't long after that, though, that all of a sudden there were jumbo quail available, which are, about twice the size of a standard quail, which, is a benefit because even a jumbo quail is not that big. So it's nice to be able to have that bigger bird. And of course, I quickly switched over to those. As soon as I could get them, I switched over to jumbo quail. There's also a lot more options as far as color go. I still raise the standard jumbo pharaoh, just the brown color, not the standard, the jumbo pharaoh, just the brown colored birds because I like those the best. The meat makers, the jumbo pharaoh, whatever you want to call them, it's pretty much the same bird. They are one of the largest of the quail, if not the largest on average. And the Coturnix quail is what we're talking about here. And they lay as many eggs pretty much as any other breed, or I don't know what you would call them, breed, or they're not really breeds. They're, anyway, different kinds of birds that you could get, different types of quail that you could get. They lay as many eggs pretty much as any of those other birds do, and you can feather sex them. So you can look at them and tell there's a male, there's a female, pretty easily. But now there's a whole lot of other color options available to you. You can get silver, you can get white, you can get color mixes, you can get tuxedos, you can get all kinds. And I've experimented with some of those before. I like them, but really I'm in it for just breeding for meat and eggs. And to me, for that, the best bang for the buck is the jumbo pharaoh. But there's lots of people out there that really like the different color variations. And there's a whole lot of different color variations now. There's also now Celadon quail, which will lay a blue egg, kind of a bluish green egg. That wasn't a thing that was available whenever I first started raising quail. So things have changed. The industry has progressed, or the interest in quail keeping has progressed. There's a lot more people doing it now. There's a convention, a yearly convention at My Shire Farm that focuses primarily on quail, and hundreds of people show up there every year, probably about 100 people every year. Lots of speakers, lots of great advice, lots of great teaching, and just good fellowship, good camaraderie. We get to kind of see the same people year after year, so I've made a lot of friends that raise quail. None of them live real close by, but we're still friends. We see each other at least once a year there. So there have been some changes. Oh, incubators have changed as well. When I first started raising quail, there were some stupid expensive incubators out there that you could get, or there were the kind of the Farm Innovations, Little Giant, I think there's one other company that makes Hovabator, I believe, styrofoam incubators, and that was pretty much your only option. Now there's a ton of different options with incubators out there. A lot of different sizes, all kinds of different features on them that will control humidity and all kinds of things. So there's a whole lot more as far as incubators go than there used to be. I still, I don't use a Little Giant anymore, but I did up until about a year ago. I got a Ovations incubator I've been using. I really like it too. Little Giant was a great incubator, and it's worked for me very well all the way up until, like I said, about a year ago. It still works. I just hadn't changed because it hadn't broken, but I was gifted this incubator that I've got now, and that's the one I'm using right now. I like it quite a bit as well. One thing I will say about Little Giant is they are fantastic customer service. So even though there's been all kinds of advancements and new incubators out there, if you've got a Little Giant, they work great. There's nothing wrong with them. And if something does go wrong, the thermostat goes out or whatever, they will replace it for you. They've got great customer service. So I highly recommend Little Giant. Miller Manufacturing is the company that makes those. All right, now, as far as the way I've changed raising my quail, the biggest change is I moved them from inside. When I first got them, I had them on stacking cages inside my garage, which it worked just fine, but they are kind of dusty. There was a lot of dust to clean up. Also had to empty dropping trays every day or every other day to keep that from building up, and it worked just fine. I also tried rollout cages where the cages kind of sit at an angle and the eggs would roll out the front, but I didn't like them. For me, I'm not raising that many birds that it's that much of a difficulty for me to open the hutch up and get the eggs out. And when I had the slanted cages, everything I put inside, feeders, everything, would just end up at the front of the cage. It was kind of a pain. So I moved away from those, and I moved away from indoor cages altogether, built these hutches out here, and moved my birds out here. I did move to an automatic watering system that's fed by a 5-gallon bucket that's hanging up there, with some water cups that are in the back here, which I'll show you here in just one moment. Other things that I've changed as I've gotten more experience with raising quail is the way I combine, the way I bring new blood into my flock. Well, I shouldn't say new blood, but the way I like replace my breeders, you know. I do that about once every, once a year maybe, once every 2 years. It just varies, it just depends. My birds will typically lay pretty well up through about 2 years. Then they start to slow down just a little bit. But usually about once a year, I'll just go ahead and replace all my breeders with the newest hatch. And the way I do that is I bring the birds out as early as I can. These babies that are in here right now are 2 weeks old, and I moved them out yesterday. They're just right at 2 weeks old today. Oh, I got flies biting me, sorry. And I moved them out and put them in here. One thing I've learned about quail, and it seems to me like some of the breeds, like when I had white quail, some people call them Texas A&M, but they're probably not Texas A&M. They're probably just they're a white gene anyway. Pure white bird. And they're pretty, they're kind of neat looking, but when I had those birds, they were super aggressive. And if you try to add adult birds in with an established flock or established covey, I guess it would be, you're almost always going to end up with some brutal fights that go on, quail missing eyes because they peck out their eyes, all kinds of fighting go on. Quail are very territorial. But I do find that when I move the babies in here at 2 weeks old, I usually don't have hardly any problems at all. Man, I got a biting fly after me. It's driving me crazy. Sorry if I'm jumping around a little bit, but I almost have no problems at all with aggression. They just grow up right with the flock and have no problems. Sometimes as they mature, they get to be about 7, 8 weeks old. I might get a little bit of them picking on each other, but it's usually not too bad. And I do find that's one thing I like about the Jumbo Pharaoh is that they tend to be a little bit mellower in my experience. That just may be my experience. I don't have anything to prove that, but they do tend to be a little bit mellower, not quite as aggressive as some of the other different color strains that you can get out there. Now, as far as, oh, I think I got him that time. As far as the other color strains go, you can interbreed those with, I mean, any of the Coturnix quail. It doesn't matter what color they are, if they're Celadon layers or what, you can interbreed them with any other Coturnix quail, and you will get, I mean, it'll dilute your genes, so you won't get pure white birds anymore, but you will get a mix of different colors in the offspring, and it could be a big mix, but you can interbreed them. So, you put them together in the same hutch. If you can get them to get along, they will interbreed. Let's get in here and take a close look here. I did have something happen to me last night, which I might as well tell on this one. Came out here this morning. I put these 2-week-old birds in here yesterday morning. Came out here this morning to make sure they were all fed, to collect eggs. And when I opened this up, there was about a 3.5-foot rat snake in the hutch, and I think he ate one of my birds at least. I think only one. So he was. I'll put a picture. I took a picture with the cell phone. It was early morning, so I didn't get the camera out. I just got him out of the hutch, let him go off in the grass. He probably got through. I've got some gaps in the hardware cloth here at the top, so I'm guessing he crawled through there. But anyway, he was. He ate one bird at least. I think only one. And at that point he wasn't hungry anymore, so all the quail are just running around all over the place, and he was just hanging out. So I just grabbed him by the tail, pulled him out, let him go off in the grass. Snakes are not like other predators. They don't typically come back to the same spot over and over and over and over again. One bird, one small baby bird like that is probably going to be enough to hold him off for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. So he won't even need to eat again for another week and a half, and who knows where he'll be by then. He may be completely off my property. He may still hang around. I hope he does hang around. I hope he eats a lot of mice, because I've had some big black snakes, rat snakes, hanging around the property the last couple of years. I haven't caught a mouse in the house for probably 2 years. They've been doing a good job of keeping the mouse population down. We don't have a huge mouse population around here, but enough that usually in the wintertime we get a couple of them come move into the house and we catch a couple. But the last 2 years I haven't had any, none. So that's good. I don't mind having the snakes around, and if I have to give up a bird every great once in a while. He was way too small to eat an adult bird, but the babies were about the right size for him. So, you know, we'll watch, we'll see. I'm not going to bother mess with this because I want to see if he does come back. Most he's going to do is eat one more bird. Not a great loss. But anyway, I'll put a picture up. This is kind of a neat looking little snake here. Like I say, he's about 3 feet long. Usually by the time they get to be about that size, they're all black, but he's still got a lot of his juvenile markings. So he was a really cool looking snake. I was kind of happy to see him, even though he did eat one of my birds. I like seeing him around. He looked real healthy. And he wasn't aggressive at all. When I picked him up, he didn't strike at me. I set him down and he just slithered off into the grass like no big deal. So anyway, let's get in close. Let's take a look here what I got going on inside. I'll show you the water cups that I use. I've done videos specifically on these before, but I'll give you an idea of how they work. Oh, I have changed my feeders. I now use a, like I build them myself. When I first started, I used like an open dish, and that didn't last very long. The quail just, I mean, they make a huge mess whenever they feed, whenever they eat. And they throw feed everywhere. So I was wasting a whole lot of food, and I quickly switched over to kind of a waste-free feeder. It's basically just Tupperware style containers with little holes cut in them. My neighbor's outside, say hi. But little holes cut in them, oh, about yay big around. I don't even measure them, I just cut them in the side. And they stick their heads through to eat. It's got a top on it. And it's significantly reduced the amount of waste that I have, as long as I don't fill them too full. And you can see, well, you probably can't see the ground here, but there's hardly any. There's a couple of pieces of food down here, but not much, because the waste is really cut down to almost nothing with these feeders. So those are the two big changes I've made. I don't know, the only other change I think I made is that, you know, when I first started keeping them, I kept them in an all-wire cage. When I built these hutches, I built built-in sandboxes, which is a great idea because they love the sandbox. They get in there and play around, and it's a 2x4 edge, so it's enough to hold most of the sand in there. They don't kick it all out all at once. I did try putting containers in there with sand, but they just get in there and kick it all out. So they didn't last very long. But these bigger sandboxes I've got, which I'll open up here in a minute and show you. If you've been watching my videos for a long time, you already know, but I'll show you anyway. But they work really well. They hold the sand for a long time. Usually about, you know, I clean them out periodically, and it's probably due for cleaning. I use this little window screen thing here, and I just sift the sand, sift the droppings out, sand falls through. And usually about once every year and a half, sometimes 2 years, it just depends. They'll finally kick enough sand out of there, it's getting pretty thin, and I'll add another bag of sand. And as far as sand goes, just whatever sand you want to get. I try to get the stuff that's fairly fine, like the play sand. But it's not, you don't have to worry about one sand over another. It's not going to hurt them at all. It'll do just fine. So that's the kind of sand I use. And I just dump a whole, like a 50-pound bag in there whenever it starts getting low on sand. Doesn't happen very often. All right, let's get in real close. We'll take a look. You'll get to see my new babies out here. Most of them are out here. They're a little jumpy, so maybe a little tricky getting this open without them all flying out. But they're right at 2 weeks old right now. And you can already start to see which ones are hens and which ones are roosters because they're feathered out. And that's one thing I really like about the Coturnix, the brown Coturnix quail. Looks like I've got a whole bunch of hens. And that is good news. Hopefully the one the snake ate was a rooster, because I don't need a whole lot of extra roosters. But anyway, let's get in here and take a look at it. All right, let's see if I can get this opened up without them all flying out. One thing I do like about this hutch is the door opens from the top down outward. And there's a ledge right here, like a pretty significant. that kind of helps keep the birds in here. I've had doors before that opened sideways or opened up, and it's like all the birds come pouring out as soon as you open the door. And this way I can, if they start flopping around, I just close it back up and kind of keep them in there. But anyway, these are an example of my feeders that I use. I've got 2 of them in here right now, just so I don't have to fill them up nearly as much, but that's it. They're just a Tupperware style container with holes cut in it. You can see a little baby back there drinking out of the water cup, and there's one running around right there. You can see, let me bring the camera in a little closer. All right, most of the little babies are right here in the corner, 2 weeks old. Some of them still got some yellow feathers on their head, but it's getting, you know, it's not getting down below mid-70s right now, and I had them acclimated to 70 degrees at about a week and a half old. And then now, so they're good. They're good out here, as long as the snake doesn't get in here and eat them all. But again, he only ate one. So several of them running around here. We got some adults right here. I don't know if that's off camera, but 2 adults back there in the corner. This one closest to us is a rooster. If you'll turn towards us, you'll see he's got a kind of a red breast to him. It's kind of a solid colored red breast. That indicates a rooster. The ones with speckled chest, the one right behind him, is a hen. I can tell that partially because she's missing feathers on the back of her head. So that is one that's, when they breed, they tend to grab the feathers on the back of the female's head, and they'll, you know, this is high time breeding season with the much light as we got going on. Hours of daylight kind of dictates that. But you can see she's got kind of a speckled chest. She's not turned right towards us, but it's pretty obvious when you look at him. See how his is kind of orangish solid. And here's another hen right here. See if we can get her to move over in front of the camera. Turn towards us. There we go. Maybe you can see that a little bit. She's got more of a speckled, kind of freckly looking white chest. So that's a hen, and that's a rooster right there. And we can already tell with the babies, most of these are hens that I'm seeing right here. I don't see any roosters yet, but I haven't inspected them real hardcore. So these are the water cups I use. I don't know how well you can see these back here. Let me turn the camera a little bit. So these are the water cups I use. It's a piece of PVC. I buy the T's that the PVC fits into that hold the water cups. I buy those on Amazon. The water cups I buy on Amazon, it's got a little yellow plunger in there. If you've used these before, these do not hold water all the time. The birds peck that plunger to let water out. So when you push this plunger down, the cup fills up with water. And I don't know how well you can see that on camera. But basically, as the birds go for the last of the water, they bump that little plunger and it lets out a little bit more. So it's a really good way to keep the waste down on the water. You don't have big problems with it. And that works pretty well. That bird's probably going to drink from that right there. He's like, ooh, look, free water. So, you know. But they found it out. They figured it out already. I didn't have to show them where the food was or the water. They figure it out. That's what they do. They go around looking for food and water, watch the adults, and they learn from them how to get to the food and the water. All right, let's back up. We'll take a look at the sandbox real quick. Okay, this half of the hutch right here is completely enclosed. I use this, I need to replace it. It's starting to fray. But anyway, I use this clear plastic. It's, I don't know, 3 mil, 4 mil, something like that, clear plastic. I just drape it over the top and staple it down to kind of provide them with some water, you know, rain protection and stuff like that. And it's completely closed in on all sides. Let me open it up slowly so I don't have a bird flying out. But there we go, there's the sandbox. The big benefit to the sandbox, not only, I mean, the birds like it. They spend a lot of time in here. They'll sunbathe in here. They'll eat some of the sand. But the eggs, they lay almost all their eggs in here, and they come out just super clean. Like there's nothing stuck to them. They're just super clean. I'll pick that up later. But this is the sandbox, and again, it works really well. You can see I've got a hole. I don't know how well you can see it, but over on the right-hand side, there's a hole for they can get back and forth between each side of the cage. That works really well. I don't guess there's much else to show right here. I probably should wash this cage out at some point, but I never do. I need to put another coat of paint on it too so it doesn't rot away. But anyway. So anyway, there's not been huge changes in the way you raise quail or the things that you do to raise quail. You could still raise them the way I did when I first started. I find these things a little bit easier. It's easier for me to hold big cages like this where I keep a big flock of them. Not a big flock. I probably keep 15, 20 birds in here. But you could keep them in small individual breeder cages with, you know, 4 females and a male, and split them up like that if you want to. This is just easier for me. I find it easier to do it outside, let the droppings fall to the ground. I clean them up once or twice a year, as opposed to dropping trays that I had to empty every couple of days. You know, the only other thing about it is I've invested in lighting. I've got a solar light that sits right up here that comes on automatically at dusk. And what that does is that keeps them laying a little bit longer throughout the year. Most of the year they'll lay. Now, if you don't have a light on there, when the daytime hours drop below about 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day, sorry, flies coming after me again. When they drop down below about 14 hours a day, your birds are going to slow down or completely stop laying. So that's what the benefit of the light is. Now, when I had them inside, it wasn't a big issue because I just leave the lights on in the garage for them until later at night and then turn it off. But out here, I'm relying more on natural light, so solar lighting works pretty well for that. That's really pretty much it to this video. Like I said, it was a specific viewer request. If you have requests for videos you'd like to see me shoot, I'm always looking for content because I've covered about everything I can think of when it comes to raising rabbits, raising quail. I know I can do repeats on that stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to figure out what do I want to repeat. So anyway, if you got content suggestions and you want to see a video addressing something specific, leave a comment below and I'll address it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And as always, God bless.